This regular meeting of the Judson Board of Trustees is hereby called to order at 7 p.m. I am very pleased that you've taken time to join us this evening. As the Judson Board of Trustees, we are here to set goals and policies and oversee the management of the district. We are responsible for approving budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and to listen to reports from the superintendent. We are not here to make administrative or management decisions pertaining to the daily operations of the district. This is the responsibility of the superintendent. In compliance with the State Government Code on Open Meetings, tonight's agenda has been appropriately posted. This is a meeting in public, not a meeting of the public. As our guests, you are welcome to observe and listen. These proceedings are being video and audio recorded and will become part of Judson's permanent legal record. In order that the tape adequately reflects these proceedings, please silence your mobile devices and refrain from talking while others are speaking. Since it is legally mandated that these proceedings are recorded accurately, I may have to ask for order periodically should I notice that disruptions are interfering with our recording capabilities. Once again, I extend to each of you a sincere welcome from the entire school board. Thank you for your interest in Judson ISD. We have established a quorum, and I will call roll. Ms. Eaton? Present. Ms. Rodriguez?
Present. Welcome.
Ms. Pichelle?
Present. Good evening.
Mr. LaFoyle?
Present. Good evening. Thank you for coming.
Ms. Canoyer?
Present. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Mr. Macias?
Present, and truly appreciate you guys being here.
And I am Dr. Melinda Salinas, and to my left we have our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Carl Montoya.
Present, and welcome to all of you.
We will now rise, please, for invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Please bow your heads. Dear Lord, we thank you for getting us through the first semester with all its trials and tribulations, but we made it this far. We ask you to continue to support our teachers, our staff, and our parents, and our students especially, because that's what this business is always about. I ask also that you help this board work with the superintendent in a very positive, professional way in the upcoming months, because as a team, we can make a positive impact on our kids, our schools, and our community. We also ask of you that everyone get home safely this evening, and we thank you for everything you have given us and our families. Amen. Amen.
I'd like to introduce to you our pledge leader for tonight. She is Janabo Diallo. Janabo, come on right up here to the microphone over here. She is a 5th grade tag student and choir student at James Masters Elementary. She is Judson Strong and a model student in all of her endeavors. Janabo treats her teachers and peers with the utmost respect at all times and is a great student. Join Janabo in the Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. and Texas flags.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
You may be seated. Let's give Janabo a hand for a nice job. Janabo. And will her family, you raise your hand, we just want to recognize you as well.
This is the next part here. Okay. Very briefly, again, this is Board Appreciation Month, January. This is happening across Texas. But also locally here at Judson, we do say it's a difficult job. It's a difficult job, but the bottom line is all of us as a team, the superintendent, administrators, and the board are trying to work in a positive way together for staff and students, and we do appreciate you. Sometimes we have some lively discussions, but we do appreciate you, and that's important because we need to continue to work together. So again, briefly, I'd like to at least present each of you with something. Dr. Salinas, if you'd come up, and I'll give you this certificate of appreciation. Ms. Pichelle. Okay. Jose Macias. Suzanne Canoyer. Richard LaFoyle. Ms. Deborah Eaton. And last but not least, Ms. Jennifer Rodriguez.
All right, we have one student recognition. We want to recognize this evening a group of students that have been showing their artistic talent for quite a while. The Judson High School Theater Department has been competing in the Texas Forensic League since September. They are nearing the end of the season, and this group of students have set themselves apart from the pack. They've done that by qualifying to represent Judson at the TFA state competition. These students are Josh Mayo, Nathaniel Cullors, Faith Hooks, Autumn Johnson, Sarah Ekaroth, Jordan Watler, Elazawan Roberts, and Alexis Patterson. I'd also like to recognize their instructor, coach, and is Mr. Larry Bailey and Larissa Lyons. I believe they're here as well. Thank you very much. We'd also like to recognize our color guard for this evening. Cadet Second Lieutenant Andrea Nuncio, Cadet Master Sergeant Hunter Hawkins, Cadet Master Sergeant Desivity Olaka, and Cadet Private Sienna Rios. And those are our student recognitions for this evening.
Will board members please make sure and select present? Yes. Oh, did I do it wrong? Jesse? Oh. Perfect, thank you. We'll move on to item 3, acknowledge of visitors and citizens to be heard. This time is provided for citizens to address the board on issues or concerns. A person may speak one time for a period of 3 minutes. Presentation shall be informative only. No board action will be taken. A complaint or charge against an officer or employee of the district is not allowed in open session. Complaints and concerns should first be addressed by campus and/or district administration. If your topic involves a personnel matter, a student matter, or if you contend that your legal rights have been violated or board policy not followed, we have specific grievance procedures, DGBA legal and local for these matters, and now is not the appropriate time to discuss these matters. We respectfully ask that you refrain from making personal attacks or rude or slanderous remarks or becoming boisterous. The presiding officer shall determine whether a person who wishes to address the board has attempted to solve a matter administratively. If not, the person shall be directed to the appropriate policy to seek resolution before bringing the matter to the board at a subsequent meeting. Citizens wishing to receive a response from concerns presented to the board must provide written documentation. The board shall not deliberate or decide regarding any subject that is not included on the agenda posted with notice of the meeting. And the first person addressing the board is Pearl Fernandez and Mark Trevino, and the agenda item is JECA Robotics Accomplishments.
Good evening, and thank you, Dr. Montoya, Dr. Salinas, and the esteemed members of the Board of Trustees for allowing us to speak this evening. My name is Pearl Fernandez, and I am Project Manager of FTC Robotics Team 12115 at Judson Early College Academy.
And my name is Mark Trevino, and I am Project Manager for Team 10632.
This past season, JECA has been an integral part of our league. In fact, we've hosted 2 of 4 meets that were held in the JECA Commons. One important thing to note is that Judson was represented by 5 separate teams, 2 from JSTEM, 2 from JECA, and 1 from TSTEM. And all teams have worked incredibly hard this past season.
During our league championship on January 20th at Lutheran High School, only 3 teams advanced into regionals, and out of 11, and both of our JECA teams advanced for 3 years. This is the 3rd year in a row. 12-11-5 won the Inspire Award, which is the highest honor that can be awarded to an FTC team, and was a finalist Alliance captain. 10-6-32 won the Design Award and was a part of the winning finalist Alliance first pick team. Now both teams were also nominated for several other awards, including The Think Award, Connect Award, Rockwell Collins Innovate Award, and the Design Award for 1211.5. And for 10632, we were nominated for the Inspire Award, Motivate Award, and Connect Award.
This year, Regionals is going to be held February 16th and 17th at Vandergrift High School in Austin, Texas. We're quite excited, but we're also a little bit apprehensive because we have a lot of work to do with our robots. But our major worry is money. We need all the help we can get to transport our 30 team members to Austin and grab a hotel. And we would welcome any guidance the audience can provide us to point us in the right direction to contact companies and apply for grants, because our goal is to raise $2,500 by February 16th. Because we don't want transportation or funds to hinder us. Our main goal is to make JECA and the entire Judson District proud of the innovative and talented students it has helped nurture and encourage to engage in such enviable STEM-related pursuits. Thank you for this opportunity to speak and showcase how JECA students exemplify the best of our district, and we hope to have your continued support in the upcoming years, because we truly are Judson Strong. Now I invite our JECA team members to please stand up, and let's give them a round of applause for the diligence they have shown this past season and the amazing work they're sure to do in the future.
This is for you, Augustine.
Thank you for your time.
Members of the team, you said $2,500 that you need, right? Yes, sir. I will find it for you.
Next, we have Lynn Holland, and the agenda item is 5x5 accelerated block schedule.
Well, thank you for hearing me. I've been teaching for about 40 years now. I've seen a lot of schedules come and go, and the 5x5 accelerated block is wonderful. It's greatly beneficial to teachers and also to students, and I think it would be a good thing in terms of testing for the school district. It's great to have that much time to spend with one class of students. You can get the one-on-one tutoring accomplished. Students have time to get the lesson before being interrupted and having to go to another classroom. And I'm sure you can imagine how wasteful of time it is to have students changing classes all the time. 7 periods is a lot. And if they don't have to change that many times, you have more time to focus on instruction. Teachers love it because we have only 4 classes to teach. We can focus on that better. We have a longer conference period where we can really conference with parents and with other staff members and really help the kids plan well for the kids. And I just feel like it would be a great thing for Judson High School if we could go to this. I think there'll be more opportunities to offer other courses as well that they can't take now. Classes that do actually support English skills. Maybe one semester they're not taking English, but they could take humanities, creative writing, literary genre, independent studies in English, things like that. So they'd still be getting their English skills, their reading and their writing every single semester. Doing things that they think are fun, that they're more engaged in. And I believe there's a testing advantage there in terms of the STAR ELC, because they could take that class that they need the first semester, take the test, and if they don't master the test, they can take it again the next semester, having received remediation in the second semester. I've not heard any teachers say they don't like it. And I personally have taught with accelerated block before, and it was great. It was a wonderful thing. So I hope you'll consider that for our school. Thank you.
Next, we have Ryan Dickerson, and the agenda item to be discussed is TAOS, T-A-O-S.
Due to Ryan's disability, I'll be speaking on his behalf. Although the words you're about to hear are not physically written by Brian, nor spoken by his mouth, I hope you will hear them with his voice. My name is Ryan Dickerson, and I have been a Judson ISD student for the last 14 years. Like every other child who comes through your school's doors, I want to have friends, be educated, and achieve my maximum potential. When I was born, nobody expected me to live more than 24 hours or to ever leave the hospital. Upon leaving, my parents were told to enjoy me as a baby because I would never survive the first year. Certainly would never take steps at age 8. And there was a greater than 95% probability I would not survive to 18. Although many of those predictions have almost come true, I'm nearly 20 years old and still going. I like to be physically active, enjoy being around other kids, and I absolutely love to walk. When I first received my TALS, I could barely take any steps. After nearly a decade of use, I have proudly walked amongst my school peers for over 340 linear feet. When my adaptive PE coach was suddenly taken from campus in mid-October, I couldn't use my TALS anymore. I was both confused and upset. Not only did I miss my coach and my friend of 14 years, but I couldn't walk. When he came back in mid-December, I was extremely excited until I learned that I was still not to be able to walk in my TALS. Somehow the device I had been using safely at school for nearly a decade and in the newest version received in January of 2017 was suddenly deemed a safety concern. When I can't walk and exercise, trapped in a seated position in my chair for hours on end, my legs and back hurt, my muscles cramp and get tight, my feet swell, my back curves, and I don't sleep at night. As disappointed as I was not to be able to use my TALS, I'm extremely happy to be walking again at school. I greatly appreciate the decision of Dr. Montoya and those on this board who supported it to reverse the district's position and let me walk once again. Although you can see from my videos that I have lost some strength and ability in the 3 months I wasn't able to walk, I promise that I will work hard to regain that which was lost, once again walk quickly, confidently, and proudly down the school's hallways. I only have a few years left at Veterans. I want to make the most of that time so I can better communicate with my family and the rest of the world. Excuse me. When I leave this school and eventually this life, hopefully people will say, never before has someone who was given so little accomplished so much. Once again, I am grateful for your assistance. With kindest regards, I am Ryan Dickerson.
Thank you. Next, we have, I don't know if it's Danielle?
Yes.
Okay, Danielle Dickerson, and
Dan.
agenda item is communication.
So on behalf of my wife, my daughter, the family and friends with us tonight, all of our supporters in the community and the larger world on Ryan's Avengers, I want to add our appreciation to the superintendent and those members of the board who supported that decision for reversing its position and allowing my son to once again walk. In addition to countless San Antonians, we have received support throughout the great state of Texas, across the United States, and from as far away as Australia and Italy. When the superintendent called our home last Thursday, it was the first positive move we have seen since filing of the due process in June. In response to that move, we as both parents and guardians of Ryan have come here with just a small contingent to address a few other items that we hope can be resolved quickly and will promote continuation of this positive momentum. I will not address the 2 years' worth of lack of FAPE or any other matters contained in the due process. These issues are best suited for another time and another place. Additionally, as requested, I will not specifically address by name or position those individuals listed in the email sent to this board on January 3rd, 2018. There are 4 issues we have attempted to address administratively that we hope the board can assist us with. The first of these is a complete lack of information and communication that we have received this year from the district regarding our son's education. Thus far, all we have received from the district are 4 documents, 2 interim grade reports and 2 grade reports. These documents show us nothing about what our son is working on, nothing about what his progress toward his IEP goals, nothing about how those grades were determined, nothing about what devices or accommodations are being used to facilitate or educate or communicate. We have received no completed work, no tests, no quizzes, no examples of material shown to him. We have received no emails from his teacher about his days, nothing from the related service providers about their sessions. All emails sent from our family to the district are forwarded to an attorney rather than answered by the educators directly involved with our son. This not only prevents effective two-way communication, but imposes an unnecessary financial burden on our family. Lastly, there is nothing that we have received thus far this year that would allow us to effectively or competently participate in our son's education. We would appreciate this board's intervention in opening the lines of communication and providing us the information we need to work collaboratively with the teachers and other providers. Thank you.
Next, we have Suzanne Dickerson, and the agenda item is ARD procedures.
Hi. This is the second item to do with my son, Ryan Dickerson. Despite the complete lack of information provided and failure to perform the requested evaluations, the district has tried to hold several ARD meetings. In fact, on more than one occasion, the district has threatened to hold ARD meetings without his legal guardian present. This type of behavior is both unethical and inappropriate in our situation. Furthermore, it goes completely against this board's stated goals and values. I ask you, would an IEP that is created without our input for a student like Ryan benefit him? Would conducting such an ARD result in improved relations between the district and our family? The worst examples of this behavior occurred in November. After an amended filing to the due process, the district proposed to hold a resolution and ARD meeting from 1:30 to 4:30 p.m. That is only 3 hours. Due to the complexity in Ryan's IEP, we have never completed an ARD for a school year in less than 5 hours. Yet on this occasion, the district proposed to resolve 2 years' lack of faith, review the current year's progress in all areas with all related services, create agreeable goals and objectives for the next year's IEP, and review transition goals for Ryan. Does 3 hours to solve 5 years' worth of education for a student as complex as Ryan sound appropriate? I'll answer for you. No, it does not. When this issue was brought up in the pre-hearing conference, the district was adamant that it was going to proceed with a resolution meeting and ARD even without the parents' participation. The district was even warned by the hearing officer about the possible repercussions should it make this attempt. Despite this, 15 people were at the resolution meeting in preparation for an ARD. During the first several minutes of the meeting, the district asked us more than once if we wanted to end the meeting. It was clear that they wanted us to walk out in anger so that they could have an ARD meeting without us and implement whatever changes they wanted. We are asking this board and this district to cease and desist from threatening to hold any more ARD meetings until our family receives all of the necessary information to actively and intelligently participate in the development of an effective IEP for Ryan. As a reminder, the information we are asking for is explicitly listed as a right of all parents in Judson's policies as well as in both state and federal law. Thank you.
Next, we have Kathy Heschmatt, and the agenda item is speech and AT services.
Good evening. I am here to speak as Ryan's aunt and as a former educator of 13 years and the mother of 2 children that also have been through IEPs and ARDs, so I've been on both sides of that table. And wanted to say that our family, Ryan's parents, have engaged the services of a speech therapist and augmentative communications specialist at home in the hopes of furthering his abilities at functional communications. They have requested a meeting between their specialist and your district's AT speech therapist, who has been working with Ryan on this very skill. And as an answer, they were offered a phone call. How is their son's therapist supposed to create his talking books or talking boards and program a communicative device without being able to see the pictographs or phrases that the district's specialist is currently using? Is he expected to learn 2 completely different methods of communication, 2 separate sets of motor planning, and 2 completely different languages? That is exactly what has been proposed by the district. This is not in the student's educational interest. The parents want to have a cooperation and continuity between the functional communication strategies of both the school and home so that Ryan only needs to learn 1 methodology, 1 language, and 1 set of motor skills. That will be difficult enough. They need to have a face-to-face meeting, not a phone call. This type of failure is exactly what happens when a district gives non-educators decision-making authority over that student's education. And we are asking this board to allow a face-to-face meeting between these respective therapists. The parents will sign any needed consent forms, and in addition, they ask the board to return the control of their son's education to his teacher and related service providers who have the necessary expertise to properly manage and implement the IEP. One final item that actually just occurred today. There are 6 students in Ryan's classroom. Today it was announced that there's going to be a field trip in the near future. 5 students got permission slips. Ryan Dickerson was not one of them. When asked by his attendant, she was told Ryan would not be receiving a permission slip and would not be going on the field trip. It would appear he's being singled out amongst his classmates for exclusion. We do implore that the board address some of these issues so that he can be back included with his group. And should any of you all wish to speak with his parents, they have communicated with the board, I know, in January, and have sent multiple emails containing all their contact information. I want to thank you for your time, your consideration, and your assistance in resolving these important educational concerns for Ryan. Our family remains committed, as do our friends, to being cooperative and collaborative partners with the district in facilitating Ryan's individualized education plan. And this is on behalf of Dan, Suzanne, and Ryan Dickerson. Thank you.
Next, we have Jacob Munchow, and the agenda item is Judson IB program.
Good evening, Dr. Montoya and the distinguished members of the board. My name is Jacob Minchow, and I'm a graduate from the International Baccalaureate Program from Judson High School, class of 2017. The vision of JISD is to produce excellence. Today, I would like to talk to you about a program that does just that. Let me begin by thanking you for keeping the IB program implemented long enough for myself and fellow graduates to complete the program. The program was rigorous, stressful, and the most challenging thing I've ever done in my life, but is by far the best decision I could have ever made. Not just because I was in advanced courses, it boosted my GPA, or even gaining college credit. All things highly emphasized for high school students, but rather everything else IB did for me. I'm talking about how rounded of a learner I became. Instead of only taking advanced courses I felt I excelled in, IB challenged me to reach my full potential in classes I otherwise wouldn't consider myself proficient in. I'm also talking about the emphasis IB puts in college readiness. The classes are modeled to mirror a college course. In history, you act as a historian, discovering why history is the shape that it's in, rather than just a contestant on Jeopardy. In English, you learn media literacy and how media is shaped and delivered, even showing you how various news outlets could have an effect on something like an election. This is becoming increasingly critical to young people, such as myself, now that we've become more reliant on all media for information. This is all done with a global outlook rather than being confined to any one state or country. Why? Because knowledge doesn't change based off where you were born or living. Knowledge is as universal and vital to our lives as the very air in this room. IB taught me to have a global perspective on learning, applying this to college and beyond, and ultimately becoming a lifelong learner. All of this aligns with the JISD mission statement. So what else has IB done for me in college? Although I didn't receive my full IB diploma, I managed to achieve 15 college credit hours by passing 5 out of 7 classes, or exams. The exams I didn't pass, I fell 1 point short with a 3. But what does this mean other than not getting a full diploma? Jay Matthews, an educational researcher, defines college readiness as a 3 on an IB exam. I would be classified as college ready, along with 90% of my classmates being college ready in Spanish, history, English, music, French, and 100% in math and biology. This is all after only 1 year of the program's reinvigoration. Needless to say, I think I speak for my fellow IB graduates and myself when I say the transition to college was smooth and almost too easy. I made the choice to stay here and work while going to Lakeview before going to university. Beyond school, I worked full-time, 25 hours a week, and landed a mentor-type internship with a very successful entrepreneur who sponsored my entire first semester of college. I couldn't have achieved any of this without the well-rounded arsenal of skills developed in every class of IB. I know college is supposed to be about sleep deprivation, getting stressed out, and tears, but man, I'm loving life right now. I owe this all to IB, the amazing Judson faculty, and you, the board, for this. So I end this with a thank you for for continuing the program long enough for myself and 17 other graduates to experience the reinvigorated IB program. It's a shame more students will have this opportunity. Thank you for your time.
Next, we have Alexis Zacharias, and Judson IB program is the agenda item to be discussed, or item to be discussed, excuse me.
Good evening, and thank you, Dr. Montoya, Dr. Salinas, and the esteemed members of the Board of Trustees. My name is Alexis Zacharias, and I am currently a senior at Judson High School, and I am in the IB program. One of the major parts of the International Baccalaureate program is creativity, action, and service, also known as CAS. Being in the IB program, 150 hours in a CAS project are needed to obtain the IB diploma. However, I've come to realize that CAS is not just something that is required, but it gives us the opportunity to go out into our community and strengthen our skills that are necessary to live a successful life. As of now, the class of 2018 has a combined total of about 500 service hours. It is a privilege to volunteer my time to give back to my community. With CAS, I have begun to feel more involved with my community and others around it because of the memories I have made while volunteering. I have grown as a person with each community service that I participate in because I'm able to notice my weaknesses and my strengths by self-reflecting on each experience. For each CAS event that we participate in, we are required to reflect on that experience and how it has helped us grow as a person. I remember working outside in the garden at the Guadalupe Community Center with a few other young people and a family. A mother was there with her 2 daughters, and it was inspiring to see a parent showing good examples to their children by motivating them to get involved in their community. I've met many inspiring people from all ages who give their time for the benefit of seeing others smile. CAS is an important aspect of IB that not only allows us to go out into our community and volunteer, but also gives us the opportunity to widen our perspective and view the world from a different standpoint in order for us to understand the various implications of the world around us. We have made ourselves known to many community centers all around the San Antonio area. People ask for our time and service. It is clear that we have made our mark. Before I entered IB, I did not fully comprehend the global issues that could be relieved with just the volunteering of my time. I now understand that with each volunteer service is an opportunity to make the world a better place, even if it's within the community. It makes the world a better place not only because of our impact on the community, but because it fortifies us as human beings. I would like to propose a few of our CAS projects that we have planned to implement during these upcoming months. Some projects include bringing clubs together for exciting activities and challenges, informing elementary students about health and exercise, bringing joy to children in hospitals by dressing up as superheroes, hosting a color run for the community, making arts and crafts for children with cancer, and the list goes on. As I stated before, it is more than just the impact on the community. It is the impact that we leave on the hearts of people that truly make a difference in the world. IB would not be IB without creativity, action, and service. Thank you.
Next, we have State Representative Tomas Uresti, and he's going to be addressing the board for proclamation? Proclamation, okay.
Good evening. My name is Tomas Uresti. I'm the state representative for District 118, and Judson ISD is one of the 11 districts in which I represent. I haven't had a chance to meet all of y'all. I know I've met Mr. Macias many years ago. I won't go how many, but it's been a while. First of all, I want to thank you for the job that you do. I know it's a very high-paying job. What are we at, $10,000 a month now, something like that? But I think as many as the audience knows, y'all don't get paid any compensation in any way whatsoever. So what you do is you do out of the kindness of your heart, and the state, myself, and I'm sure the entire community thanks you for what you do. So with that, I have a resolution I'd like to read to the board with your permission. Whereas school board members play an integral role in the education of our children, and the observance of School Board Recognition Month is January 2018, provides a welcome opportunity to honor the trustees of the Judson Independent School District. And whereas working in conjunction with administrators, classroom teachers, and parents, the Board of Trustees furthers the district's mission of providing students with the knowledge and skills necessary to become successful and productive citizens. Its responsibilities include setting policy, ensuring the efficient operation of school facilities, with the goal of fostering an optimal learning environment for all students in the district. And whereas the dedicated individuals presently serving on the Judson ISD Board of Trustees are President Dr. Melinda Salinas, Vice President Renee A. Pascal, Secretary Jose Macias, and Trustees Susan Conoyer, Richard Lafoy, Deborah Eaton, and Jennifer Rodriguez. And whereas these notable Texans have demonstrated an exemplary commitment to area students, and through their vision and leadership, they are now contributing immeasurably to the future of the Lone Star State. Now therefore be it resolved that the trustees of the Judson ISD School Board District be commended for their service to the community, and that each of them be extended sincere best wishes for continued success in their important work. From the state of Texas. So again, thank you very much for what you do. We greatly appreciate it. And if I can ever be of service to the district in any way whatsoever, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I'll leave this with this young lady. Thank you so much.
We'll move on to item 4, consideration of consent items. Please let me know if you'd like to pull an item. 4A, consider and take action regarding approving minutes from the special meeting held on April 23rd, 2015, minutes from the special meeting held on June 26, 2017, and minutes from the regular board meeting held on December 21st, 2017. Okay. 4B, consider and take action regarding approving monthly financial information as of December 31st, 2017. 4C, consider and take action regarding approving of cash investment report for all funds as of December 31st, 2017. 4D, consider and take action regarding approving the submittals for request for proposal 17-35 for general instructional supplies.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yes, pull? No? Okay. E, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the proposals for request for proposal 18-07 for the landscaping maintenance services. Pull, Ms. Pichon. 4F, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the proposals for the request for proposal 18-13 for the digital video projector project. 4G, consider and take action regarding approving a proclamation to declare January 2018 School Board Recognition Month. 4H, consider and take action regarding approving a proclamation to declare February 2018 Career and Technical Education Month. 4I, consider and take action regarding approving a proclamation to declare February 5th through 9th, 2018 National School Counseling Week, theme Helping Students Reach for the Stars. And I think I'll be reading all of those proclamations, correct? Okay. Yes, I have plenty of water, thank you. 4J, consider and take action regarding approving an agreement with HPSA Land Partners LLC to create a sanitary sewer easement on property located on Woodlake Parkway in the Horizon Point subdivision. 4K, consider and take action regarding approving the second reading of the following local policies: DEC local, compensation and benefits, leaves and absences; EHBA local, special education, video, audio monitoring; EIA local, academic achievement, grading, progress reports to parents; FFH local, student welfare, freedom from discrimination, harassment, and retaliation; GBAA local, information access, request for information. 4L, consider and take action regarding approving the Texas Teacher Evaluation Support System, T-TESS appraiser for the 2017-2018 school year.
Motion.
Okay, motion, Mr. Macias, second, Ms. Pichal, and we are voting on items 4B. Do I need to move to? Yes. 4B, C, D, F, G, H, I, even though I'm going to read those, J, K, and L. We will proceed to vote. Motion carries 7-0. Go back to item 4A, consider and take action regarding approving minutes from the special board meeting held on April 23rd, 2015, minutes from the special meeting held on June 26, 2017, and minutes from the regular board meeting held on December 21st, 2017. And Ms. Pashal.
Thank you. Dr. Montoya, I just would like to have some clarity, please, on the expectation of the board when we are approving or disapproving past minutes. What is the expectation of the board? Are we to approve or disapprove for the sake of the record? Or are we to approve or disapprove based on its accuracy?
It really ought to be both. It ought to be both because it's a legal document that people can go back historically to check an item or what was passed or not passed in the past, those types of things. So your comments are from both perspectives, and you're correct.
So I don't think then that I would be able to approve these minutes from 2015. All those that were present are gone except for the two gentlemen up here. So how could we approve the accuracy if we weren't there?
And I don't know, Betty, you may have some information, I think, on that one.
If it's just for record, I understand, but if it's for accuracy,
No, it's for record, and I did review the video and take the minutes from the video of the board meeting.
Dr. Montoya, are there going to be others that are going to?
We hope not. Obviously, we had a change of office support people right about the same time. And, to be honest, we had a new person learning. And so part of it was that. But we will not have that in the future.
Okay, what I was wondering, if there are other minutes, that may be this old, could we approve all of them like at one time, or do we have
We
to
could
do-
research, I think,
Because if
Ms.
we weren't-
Holmes, why don't we go back and let us check to see if there's any others?
I'm just wondering if we could do it all at once, and then whenever that comes
Mm-hmm.
about, she can just go ahead and put it in the record.
No, we could do that, so maybe research a little bit and let's see if there's anything else, so we can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. LaFoille.
Dr. Montoya, you said this was for clarity? This is something that we should remember? What?
Well, no, you won't remember unless you have a mind that can go back 3-4 years and that kind of thing.
I don't
But,
like approving something that I don't remember.
Well, that's why, again, you received the copies, hopefully a week early before the board meeting to review, and if there's any questions, obviously, you can call back, and we can have Ms. Holmes, who obviously can re-verify and get on the computer and check the minutes and these kinds of things.
Well, it says on there that I abstained. I don't remember abstaining for anything.
I think, Betty, you said you verified that whole thing and checked the exact voting results, right?
Yes, sir, I did watch the video, and I did take minutes as they were, as the meeting went, so.
Well, before I can vote on this, I would like to see the minutes of the meeting myself.
Right here.
I mean, that's only partially of it. That don't tell the whole story. And the thing is, we can go on with it. I don't know, Jose, do you remember it?
No, I do not, but I'll put my faith in our system with Ms. Holmes looking at the tape. I'm sure you reviewed the tape. And if one vote, I wasn't even here, so it says I was absent from the vote, so that's what it says, so I'm tardy. But no, I don't, to answer your question.
Well, really, nobody's here that voted for it. Part of it, anyway. Just go on, I'll just abstain again.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. Item 4E, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the proposals for the request for Proposal 18-07 for the landscaping maintenance services. Motion, Mr. LaFoille, second, Ms. Pashal. And Ms. Pashal, you pulled that item.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Dr. Montoya, I know I've asked this question before, but I don't see a difference in the scorecard. For the sake of everybody, to be transparent, I'm on page 68, and I was looking at the detailed scorecard. There are several categories with a couple of these RFPs. There are several categories that do not require any points, none at all.
Okay.
And I asked this question once before, but it's still here. My question is, if none of them can be awarded any points, there's no points for these particular categories, there's no points for them to receive, why are they even on the scorecard? Unless you would just put NA not applicable.
I think Dr. Fields, if you would explain the process, because his team is the key in this process.
As you go through the RFPs, Ms. Pashal, on some of them, some of the questions don't pertain, so it is a not applicable on this particular RFP. Not that these questions are never considered, it's just that in this particular RFP, it wasn't considered.
Okay, but I said that once before, sir. I just want to know how come it hasn't changed.
I would defer to the purchasing department on the questions that we solicit for the RFPs.
So is it going to stay this way?
If we could have our Director of Purchasing come up and speak to the questions that are listed in the RFPs that go out, I think that would be more specific.
So, okay, these are a response to the RFP. These are the responses to the RFP that was sent out, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and so you guys devised the scorecard,
Yes, ma'am.
and you devised the point system that you're going to give for that particular category.
Yes, the categories that are listed on the scorecard and that we list within the RFP itself are defined under the Texas Education Code and how we will evaluate a bid. If not every category that is listed many times will fit a particular bid. So when we do that, we just show it as 0 points in the RFP.
Okay, got it.
That way and we still keep it in the scorecard, but there are 0 points. The vendors, when they receive an RFP, absolutely will know how their response is being evaluated.
Okay, so all RFPs have these categories. Some of them, there's going to be a necessity to award points for these categories. Some RFPs, it's not going to be necessary to award any points.
Yes, ma'am.
But all of the categories are the same on every RFP, is that
Yes, ma'am.
correct? Okay, thank you.
Any other?
Mr. LaFoille.
Have we done business with these people before?
No, sir, I don't believe so.
Have we done business with anyone on this before?
I would have to defer to the maintenance department to know which ones we've done business with in the past. I know we've done some with Maldonado? ABC, excuse me. Yes, ABC. When we did receive all the responses, they were reviewed by the maintenance department. The maintenance department did visit the company that came out on top. They did an on-site visit to check out their equipment, their operations, the viability of the company before we made a decision in which direction to go.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Pashal.
Sir, is this the first time we've had a long-term contract for landscaping?
I believe so, yes.
For long-term?
Yes, ma'am.
So, okay, this is because we, tell me about this.
Please allow me. Please. Yes, sir. With the advent of Veterans Memorial High School, we need an athlete, because we're increasing the athletic grounds out there, we need another athletic grounds crew. We have 3 crews currently that go around and cut all of the districts. So if you were to take this 16 divided by 3, it comes up with about 5.3. If we move one of those grounds crews as an athletic crew to take care of the striping and all of the other things that come up with each particular game, then we can contract out a third of what we do around the district for a much lower cost and not hire 3 people at $30,000 apiece with benefits.
Plus health
and
benefits.
The trucks,
Okay.
the trailers, the equipment, and then we can use them when we need them, and when we don't during the winter months, we don't have to worry about benefits and salary on staff.
Makes sense.
Yes, ma'am.
If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. Motion carries 7-0. I'll proceed to item 4G, just to read the proclamation. School Board Recognition Month, Judson ISD Board of Trustees. Whereas the mission of the public schools is to meet the diverse educational needs of all children and to empower them to become competent, productive contributors to a democratic society in an ever-changing world. And whereas local school board members are committed to children and believe that all children can be successful learners and that the best education is tailored to the individual needs of the child. And whereas local school board members work closely with parents, educational professionals, and other community members to create the educational vision we want for our students. And whereas local school board members are responsible for ensuring the structure that provides a solid foundation for our school system. And whereas local school board members are strong advocates for public education and are responsible for communicating the needs of the school district to the public and the public's expectations to the district. Now therefore, I, Melinda Salinas, Board President of Judson Independent School District, proclaim the month of January 2018 as School Board Recognition Month. I urge all citizens to join me in recognizing the dedication and hard work of local school board members and in working with them to mold an education system that meets the needs of both today's and tomorrow's children. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the Great Seal of Judson ISD this 25th day of January 2018. I will read 4H, proclamation to declare February 2018 Career and Technical Education Month. Whereas February 1st through 28th, 2018 has been designated Career and Technical Education Month by the Association for Career and Technical Education. And whereas profound economic and technological changes in our society are rapidly reflected in the structure and nature of work, thereby placing new and additional responsibilities on our educational system. And whereas career and technical education provides Americans with a school-to-careers connection and is the backbone of a strong, well-educated workforce which fosters productivity in business and industry and contributes to America's leadership in the international marketplace. And whereas career and technical education gives high school students experience in practical, meaningful applications of basic skills such as reading, writing, and mathematics, thus improving the quality of their education, motivating potential dropouts, and giving all students leadership opportunities in their fields and in their communities. And whereas career and technical education offers individuals lifelong opportunities to learn new skills which provide them with career choices and potential satisfaction. And whereas the ever-increasing cooperative efforts of career and technical educators, business and industry stimulate the growth and vitality of our local economy and that of the entire nation by preparing graduates for career fields forecast to experience the large and fastest growth in the next decade. Now, therefore, I, Melinda Salinas, School Board President of Judson ISD, do hereby proclaim February 1st through 28th, 2018 as Career and Technical Education Month in Judson Independent School District and urge all citizens to become familiar with the services and benefits Judson ISD offers for career and technical education programs in this community and to support and participate in these programs to enhance their individual work skills and productivity. 4I, consider and take action regarding approving this proclamation to declare February 5th through the 9th, 2018 National School Counseling Week. and the theme is Helping Students Reach for the Stars. National School Counseling Week focuses public attention on the unique contributions professional school counselors make within the school setting. A school counselor shall work with the school faculty and staff, students, parents, and the community to plan, implement, and evaluate a developmental guidance and counseling program. That's from Texas Education Code 33.005. The primary responsibility of a school counselor is to counsel students to fully develop each student's academic, career, personal, and social abilities, and that's from Texas Education Code 33.006. Whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential, and whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development. Whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children. And whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves. And whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society. And whereas comprehensive developmental school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in school. Therefore, I, Melinda Salinas, Board of Trustees President, do hereby proclaim February 5th through 9th, 2018 as National School Counseling Week. Okay. We are moving on to item 5A. Consider and take action regarding the approving an appointing a committee to develop a plan in order to pursue the designation as a district of innovation. Do I have a motion? Motion, Mr. Macias, second, Ms. Eaton. And Dr. Montoya.
Members of the board, again, this is a required process that the state has districts do if we're looking at districts of innovation concepts. This is one step that has to be done. Mr. Gonzalez, if you'd like to briefly address this.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. With this agenda item, by approving and appointing the committee, what you allow us to do is begin creating and planning a district of innovation ideas and bringing that plan back to the Board of Trustees for approval. This is just one of the steps that we have to take in order to begin that process. A list of those committee members have been forwarded to you for your approval.
Okay, if there's no discussion, you have discuss, okay. Thank you, Mr. Macias.
Dr. Montoya, this is a very a good list of employees, teachers, and a mixture. Do some of our employees know that they were put on this committee? Did they volunteer? How was that determined?
It was voluntary, so, well, go ahead, Mr. Gonzalez.
We sent out a request for volunteers. We didn't want to make that decision until we got approval from this board to notify them. So once we get approval from you, we will notify them, and then we will begin the meeting process.
So do we expect?
We didn't want to jump the gun. We didn't want to.
Well,
we wanted to respect the process and make sure that we're very transparent in that.
So once we approve this tonight, are you going to get 100% participation from everyone that's listed here?
They volunteered.
So that, okay.
They were not voluntold.
Well, and just, I won't put the names out, but right now, because there's 36 of them, it's a lot of names, but 11 of them are teachers, so I think that's a good start as well as engaging. So, and 4 parents and 1 community member? Is it like 1 community member because that was the only 1 community member we could find, or?
No, sir, there is no definition as to how that committee is made up, but we know that
Okay.
several of our teaching staff and several of the people that wanted to volunteer and that put their names out there serve as community members in different roles as well. So,
I guess my last question is, are we able to add to this list, or do you just want to leave it in this 36-member cohort?
36 members is
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it is.
As we research the District of Innovation, we've seen members there as many committee members as 50, as few as 5. So
I guess the only add-on that I would want is I'd like to see more community members reflected on these, but that's just a wish if we're able to do that. If not, we certainly can move forward. I mean, it looks strong. But if I had my one wish to this, that's what I would add.
Point taken, sir.
If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. Motion carries 7-0. 5B, consider and take possible action regarding approving the personnel report. That will happen after closed session. We'll move on to 6A, superintendent report, construction update.
Again, this is something we do every month, kind of update you on some of the bond projects. I'd like Dr. Fields, if you do a brief review of that. Also, I understand, Mr. Macias, you have a question in that area related to roofs, so go ahead, Dr. Fields.
Yes, sir. Our current construction projects for the month of January are starting to build up after the winter break. The key projects that we have going on is the first 5 of the cafeteria addition and renovations. The contracts have gone out for those, and we're in negotiation with the architects on how they're going to get all of that done. The first 5 of the 10 are Converse, Park Village, Woodlake, Candlewood, and Crestview. And the second 5 that we plan to put out later are Spring Meadows, Eloff, Millers Point, Olympia, and Pashal. We are also, aside from working on bond issues, working on insurance issues, and that's primarily the roofs. There were 22 roofs that were damaged in the hailstorm. 6 were deemed critical by the insurance company, and those are the 6 critical roofs that we're working on now, which are Hopkins, Masters, Wagner, Eloff, Park Village, and Pashal. The elementaries are projected for completion around the end of June, June 30th, where Wagner is projected for completion at the 30th of December in 2018. So it's supposed to be a year-long project. I would tell you, though, that currently Hopkins is at about 40% complete. Masters is at 55% complete. Wagner's at 45% complete. Eloff's at 50% complete. Pashal's at 25% complete. And Park Village is at 30% complete. And Pashal and Park Village are those old metal roofs, so it takes a lot much more to break them down and then build them back up again. And then in closing, I would tell you that Veterans Memorial is moving along really well. We're still in a contract negotiation with the architects on how we're going to build the new auditorium out there and the academic buildings, and then establish that baseball and softball field up the field. That's about it. I stand ready for any questions you may have.
Dr. Fields, I will tell you, I think it's sort of funny. I'm telling this really to the community, that he always asks if I'm going to give him a hard time before a meeting. So I told him, yes, I would today. But no, really, I won't. The question I have is regarding, as you mentioned, about the roofing projects across the district. I have received some complaints from Eloff that the noise through the roofing projects that we have are detrimental to the classroom, that it's loud and it's causing some concerns. Are students distracted? So based on that, you had kind of outlined what that schedule looked like, and I think I heard you mention June 30th of this year, and that's insurance projects, am I correct?
Yes,
and I understand that we have to comply with the insurance timelines to getting these projects done. What is our end date? Is it the end of this year? Is it June 30th, the completion date? What is the insurance company saying we need to have these projects completed by?
The original end date was a year from when we put in to apply for retrieval of the insurance, which was a month after the incident. The hailstorm happened in April of 2016. We went in May of 2016. They wanted to see us done by May of 2017. They granted us another year. And in that year, they want to see us have a commitment for the remaining 16. So we would have to get those under contract to make sure that we're working on it. But the critical roofs that we needed to complete are those critical 6. So what we have to do after this, will be simple in comparison to what we're doing now. In terms of the noise, I just have to say, we're sorry. But we're trying to get all of this work done in a matter of time. If we don't get this done within that 2-year time span, their plan or their instruction was, you guys can take on the cost for that yourself, because they can't equate everything that's needing to be replaced at that point back to what happened 2 years ago.
Well, and again, that makes sense. I don't know if that's conveyed to our PTOs or to our employees, so they understand that these are not bond projects. We're not railroading them in that respect, but we do have some issues with insurance. And then, of course, I guess you've asked them if they could work on weekends and in the evening to mitigate the issues with classroom instruction. And is that not a viable option?
They've been working weekends, they've been working all day, they've been working with the lights on. We can only go till about 8:30, and then at 9 o'clock they have to stop, because we've had homeowners associations call us and say, hey, you guys are still knocking on the roofs over there. In addition, I would tell you that they start real early in the morning. Then when the students show up around the pledge time, they back off. Then they start up again. Now, there's some parts to creating a roof that make more noise than others. What we've tried to do is, when you break off a roof, there's a base, there's just wood on top. To get that up and get down to the base makes a lot of noise. We've passed that part on all of the roofs that we're working on. So most of the major noise making is gone. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to be quiet up there from now until the end of June, but a lot of the primary work is done. Then, when they get ready to put the new insulation on, because the new code went from 2 inches of insulation to 4, they have to get these big screws and screw down in there to make sure the new insulation works. So we're doing all of this in an effort to keep the rain out of the classroom and get the roofs fixed.
I guess my last question will be, well, I have 2 requests.
Yes,
One,
sir.
can we get a list that you just pointed out of all of the facilities that are under the roofing projects for the insurance?
Yes, sir.
And then, of course, the timeline for completing, is that?
Yes,
okay?
we can get that, Dr. Fields, for the whole board.
Yes, sir. I would say for the remaining 16, we're not quite sure yet, because there's different things that need to be done on each one of those. So what we're looking for is a commitment by May, not necessarily a completion by May.
Well, can you do your best to give us a completion date? I mean,
That would happen, yes, sir, but again, it would depend on the scope of work that we have to put into the remaining roofs. Some are just going to be a simple coating. Others may be, we need to prepare this particular section. We'll look into it and give the best approximation that we can.
Okay, and my other point, will this impact any potential summer programs in some of these campuses? I know last year we did see that, where we had to, kind of close off a school due to projects that we had. So if we're going to do summer programs, are any of these campuses going to be impacted by this project?
Definitely, yes, sir.
Okay.
Because what we're trying to do is complete this before the start of next school year. We've also made decisions that around testing time, regardless of where they are in the construction process, it stops. And then we go through our testing process, and then we start back up again. If you really look at the completion timelines and how far along we are right now based on when we started, I would say candidly, I'm sure facilities isn't happy with this, but we're ahead of schedule. Wagner was supposed to take a year to get done, and we're 50% complete. So they're moving at breakneck speed on trying to get this done.
When we get the list of where we are in the projects, if I can understand which schools will not be available for summer programs, that would be good to know.
Yes, sir. Now, that's not limited to just what we need to do to the roofs. I mean, technology has work as well, and then
Sure.
we have other bond projects to complete.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Fields, I haven't heard anything about the safety of the schools for the vestibules that were being made to make them safe.
Yes, sir.
Is anything happening with that?
We've done a lot of the schools already. We're trying to get as much work done as possible in a short amount of time. It's kind of a shotgun approach, but I know that there are many elementary schools around the district that now have vestibules that didn't have them before. to include Eloff, Hopkins. I know that you're probably talking about Park Village or Hartman.
No. Park Village, Hartman, Hopkins.
Yes, sir.
Kirby.
No, Hopkins has a vestibule.
Did they get it in?
Yes, sir.
I haven't been over there in
They have
about,
one.
how long ago did they put it in? you know?
It's been a while. It's been a
Has it?
while. I
didn't
remember when I
notice it.
went over there last time, it was up.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And Park Village is one of the few schools that we have in the district that actually has,
A button,
exactly.
yeah.
So that's a little bit more secure than some of the others. And then Hartman, we're going to.
Hartman is unbelievable. You can walk in that front door and go anywhere you want.
Yes, sir, because the admin room is over to the
Yeah,
left.
way over the side.
Yes, sir.
I would you keep me posted on that when they're going to get to these?
Understood.
Thank you.
Specifically Hartman.
Hartman, Park Village.
Okay,
I know Kirby will be done when the school's done.
exactly.
That-
We're
that's a
doing the
complete
major
takedown
renovation,
and
and
put
it'll
back
be
up.
a brand-new administrative
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
So, yes, sir.
So,
Okay, will do.
okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I wasn't going to say anything on this item, but when I heard Dr. Fields say, "I'm sorry," to Mr. Macias, I thought that was a little insensitive. Maybe you might want to have some type of communication with the principal over there at Eloff or something, but just coming from your department saying, "I'm sorry," it's loud. That seems to be a little insensitive.
No, ma'am.
To the kids.
We've gone to each campus once they've complained about the noise, and then brought in the contractors from off the roof down to actually have conversations with them. The project managers go out every day, and if it's major disruption, they ask them to move to a different part. So, I mean, we really are trying to fix this plane as we taxi down the runway. And that apology wasn't off-putting, it was sincere. I mean, we're really trying to get this done, even though we know we have all the education going on. And we made that clear before we started too, and told everybody it may be this way.
So what you're saying is that although all the people over there know and they have been told, there's still some complaints, I guess, Mr. Macias, they still, even though they understand the process and they've been told, they're still complaining?
Well, to my understanding, the parents are unaware, and so if the parents are unaware, some employees may be unaware, and, because I'm sure there's conversation going back and forth, so I don't know where this would stop, if it stopped at the principals, if they communicated, but I'm hearing that, so naturally, I don't know where, I just know I received the request to look into it, and so I said I'll look into it.
I can assure you that the administration has been made aware.
If there's no further, we don't have to vote on this. Thank you. Oh, awesome. Yay. Yay, no voting. We'll move on to 6A2, Equal Employment Opportunity, EEO Report. Dr. Montoya.
Members of the board, this is a report that every 2 years we submit to the U.S. Department of Labor in terms of equal employment opportunities for staff and hiring, actually. And Mr. Garcia from HR has composed a very good report, and he wants to give you a brief summary now. You all got a copy of this earlier, so this is not the first tonight that you're hearing a lot of it. But Mr. Garcia, if you'll go ahead and please present.
Thank you, sir. As Dr. Montoya mentioned, you do have quite a bit of data there. It's very specific. You have 5 pages of 3-year trends of staff ethnicity data, and you also have the 82-page EEO-5 report that is submitted. What I'd like to do is share a summary at the district level of what you have to kind of bring that all together, all of the raw data that you have in your board books. And then I would also like to share a few graphs that'll hopefully make the EEO data a little more relative. But first, a quick background, what is an EEO-5 report? The EEO-5 report is a joint requirement of the EEOC and the Office for Civil Rights of the Department of Education. It's part of a mandate under the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Which prohibits, it is in part a labor law which prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, ethnicity, age, gender, or anything else that could be considered discriminatory. So, of course, at Judson ISD, all of our hiring practices are always in accordance with the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We never discriminate on the basis of age, gender, ethnicity, race, religion, or anything else that would be considered discriminatory. The report is submitted every 2 years and the even number years, and it covers all public schools. So that 82-page EEO report that you have in your board books was submitted in November 2016 using that year's data, and then it would be submitted again in November of 2018 using obviously next year's data. The report also indicates the composition of the workforces by gender and race and ethnic category. And lastly, the data is used for purposes including enforcement, self-assessment by employers, which is something that we do continually here at in our HR department, and research. So a quick summary of what you had there with regard to 3-year trends. We shared 3-year trends with you last year, so we're doing it again this year. And although we report every 2 years, we share this report with the board on an annual basis. As you can see there, the African American employee ethnicity percentages of our staff has remained fairly consistent. It's decreased by 1% in the last 3 years and only 0.1% in between last year and this year. Our percent of white staff has decreased rather significantly by 6.0%, and that, of course, is indicative of an overall increase in minority staff over the last 3 years under this administration. The employee ethnicity percentages for our Asian staff has also remained fairly constant. It's only decreased by 0.7%, and the Hispanic or Latino percentages in the last 3 years have increased by 7.9%. Here is a graphical analysis of the raw data I just shared with you in the last 2 slides, and you can see it remains fairly consistent. The African American staff percentages over 3 years has been pretty consistent, as has the Asian staff percentages. The Hispanic staff has increased somewhat significantly, and the white staff has decreased, again, indicative of an increase in minority staff here over the last 3 years. This slide is actually quite telling. What we have here is a comparison of the percent of applicants versus the actual percent of ethnicity of our staff. And this is important because it underscores the fact that we are always in accordance with the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That is, we have non-discriminatory hiring practices. The blue bar you see there is the percent of applicants over the last 3 years in that particular ethnicity, and the red bar is the percent of staff for that particular ethnicity. And so what's telling here is that the percent of applicants and staff for the African American and Asian ethnicities are virtually identical. And there are slightly fewer Hispanic applicants compared to the percent of Hispanic staff, and slightly more white applicants compared to the white staff, but those last 2 sets of data are within a standard deviation. So essentially, the percent of staff tends to be proportional to the percent of applicants we have. We have approximately 23,000 applicants per year, or applications per year. So that's quite telling. This next set of graphs, or this next graph set of data, shows student ethnicity percentages, and I told you I was going to share some data with you that would make the data a little more relative. Although this isn't part of the EEO report, we feel that, well, we always like to brag about the diversity of our student enrollment, and you can see the different ethnicity of our student enrollment over the last few years has remained very consistent. And by the data, you can see that the Hispanic enrollment continues to be the majority of our students, over 50% of our students. But we really embrace our diversity, and it shows that we do indeed have a diverse student enrollment. I also share that with you because ideally, you would want your staff to be similar to the percent of students that you have in an enrollment. And so that's what the last two slides will show. You can see there by the last two slides that the percent of African-American students compared to the percent of African-American staff is pretty similar. There's a discrepancy of 3.8%. There's a more significant discrepancy between the Hispanic students and Hispanic staff to the tune of 14%. And the last slide shows that our highest discrepancy, our greatest discrepancy is between white staff and white students, which is a discrepancy of approximately 24%, and the Asian staff and Asian students have a discrepancy of about 1%. So that is a summary of the EEO data and just a little background on why we report every year and what we have to report on a biennial basis. At this time, I'd be glad to answer any questions that any of you might have about the report.
Ms. Eaton?
They are in the EEO report, ma'am, but because they're less than 1%, I didn't make graphs of them because they're under 1%, but they are in your board book on the EEO report. Absolutely. The American Indian and Native Alaskan are one ethnicity group, and then we also have two or more races, but they tend to be less than 1%, 0.3%, 0.2%. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Paschal?
Thank you for your comprehensive report, Mr. Garcia.
You're welcome, ma'am.
And answering the request. I didn't know that you were going to have something special. I thought that what you were going to do was address what we have in our board book.
Yes, ma'am. What I did was I tried to summarize everything that you have in your board book because it is quite a bit of raw data, but I'll be glad to answer any questions about that. The graphs were taken from page 5 of the 3-year trends, the overall Judson ISD 3-year totals.
I asked this question last year. I'll ask again. Who receives these reports?
The Department of Labor, it's submitted to the Department.
Locally, I'm sorry, locally.
Locally, we simply present to the board on an annual basis, as per board policy. But
So, excuse me.
I will add that we always make sure our principals are cognizant of their student enrollment demographics, which is all of that data that you see for their particular campus, so that they're mindful of that when they're hiring.
There are still a lot of campuses that I see on this report that I'm concerned about. I may not be anybody else up here who is, but I am. Coronado Village. I'm looking all the way across and just comparing all of the, each year and ethnicity. I'm looking at the percentages of each year and the ethnicity. And for me, I have concerns about Coronado Village, the Human Resources Department, I'm on page 2, Business Office Employee Services. On page 3, Secondary Curriculum, Athletic Department, Professional Development, Science Specialist, Social Studies Specialist, oh no, not adult. those places, I see some glaring still areas of concern that look glaring to me. It may not be to anybody else, but they're glaring to me. And I just wanted to know, are these reports being used to solve some of these diverse problems?
Yes, ma'am, they are in the Human Resources Department. We look at this data all the time. A lot of these issues stem from a couple of things. First of all, there is a big push for employee retention, so naturally, it takes some time to start replacing staff. If we're trying to keep everybody here, then the tendency would be the staffs aren't going to shift very much, but that's definitely one factor. And the other, oftentimes, some of these departments are pretty small, like in the case of Coronado Village, they have few teachers because of their enrollment, and they don't have a lot of turnover, so we are well aware of that. I know principals and department leaders are well aware of that, but because our turnover is not so great, it's something that takes a bit of time to rectify.
Also, you don't have to report to this, you have to report to the state every year or every other year. Is that what you said?
Yes, ma'am, actually to the federal government.
To the federal government every other year?
That's correct, every
But
even numbered year.
locally, we will receive this every year?
That is correct, ma'am.
Okay, all right. And is there a policy that says? Oh,
Yes,
that's
ma'am,
right, it's
there is.
October.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Garcia.
You're welcome, ma'am.
No further discussion? We'll move on to item 6B, discuss Senate Bill 725, creating and operating district food pantry.
Again, members of the board, this is a topic that has previously been brought up, and it is a good thing. I mean, when you create a pantry in a particular community, obviously, the goal is always to help your students first in that area, but also the community. And I think Dr. Fields, if you kind of review what's been done and where we're trying to go with that.
Yes, sir. Back in November on the 28th, we went to the leadership meeting and actually solicited all of the principals to see who would be interested in establishing a food pantry on their campus. And we waited for a response, and our responses were limited. So when we came back from the winter break on the 8th of January, we resolicited it again to determine who was it that was interested in starting a food pantry. We received a bunch of responses this time, and a lot of them stated that they were doing the share table in their cafeterias where students could come up and put the non-perishable items that they were using on a table, weren't going to use on a table, and other students could come up. Matter of fact, we found that all of the schools except for two, which is JLA and JCare, participate in the share tables. But we also determined that there were 3 campuses that are interested in starting a food pantry, which are Jekka, Pashal, and Metzger. So we will be working with them. And we've already sent out the information on how to get it started, how to make a roster of the food that comes in, and so on. All right.
Thank you,
Yes,
Dr.
ma'am.
Fields.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's understandable that JLA and JCare don't have shared tables.
Correct.
Because my question was going to be, how many schools aren't doing it?
Yes, ma'am. They all are. Yes, ma'am.
So thank you, thank you. This is good news. I saw an email that we all got
Yes, ma'am.
about the food pantry that will be at, is it JCare? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I'm going to go to that.
And
Thank you.
And again, we're working with the other schools over time to see if we can expand that concept, so it's growing. Yes, yes, Metzger also has been doing something, so.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, we'll move on to item 6C, Human Resources Audit Follow-up. Mr. Macias.
Yes, Dr. Montoya, I'm just trying to get an assessment of where we are. I did appreciate the draft that Gibson had put together, but talk to me a little bit about where we are in that process.
I think, again, through the board president, Dr. Salinas, she had solicited from the board specific areas that you wanted to be looked at in the HR department in the audit. And once that piece was put together, we submitted to Gibson, and he was going to come back and basically give us a cost estimate. But I think, Nicole, you may have a little more information on that.
Yes, sir. In the scope of work that you received in your board book, that was just based on the conversations that y'all had with Mr. Gibson in December. And the point where we're at right now is just for you to review that scope of work. And once y'all all come to a consensus on what those items are that you would like to be audited, then Mr. Gibson can provide us with a quote. So as long as you're happy with that scope of work between what he discussed with all of y'all, then he can give you a better understanding of the cost of that type of audit. So if you're happy with all those items, we can send it back to him. If you have any changes, you can just let us know and we can get with him so he can update the scope of work.
And we received an email, right? You know, I'm going to tell you, I'm asking this question. I don't think I ever replied to that email. I just want it all done. But I will officially respond to that to kind of do my part on that. But I appreciate that. That gives us a better idea. What I'm very hopeful to see out of this particular audit is that we have information to impact our budget discussions. And so it would be useful to have some viable data that we're able to review as early as March or April so that we can actually look at, okay, what kind of adjustments do we need to make? So that's sort of my unofficial timeline. I'd like to see something started, but I'll respond and I'll do my part.
Ms. Rodriguez.
The question that I had, and maybe this is a matter of like just approving it and then finding out how much it's going to cost. All of those things were blank on here, and so then if we do say that, and then we find out like, oh, actually this is way beyond our budget, can we then make decisions?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, you can add or change, or you can even maybe decide to
Okay.
get a different quote.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to item 6D. Judson Early College, JECA discussion. Mr. LaFoille.
Yes, I started researching this early college campus we have, and I found out that it's not what it says it is. I'm right on the line. It is being chosen by one person who goes there, and they're picking the greatest class they can get. And that is not what we had. Disadvantaged kids are being put in the back burner. I had all the things here, but I seem to have left it at the house. One year, there was 11 children that put in for JECA. They were all kids that did not go to Judson, but went to other schools, but lived in the Judson community. Out of that 11, 10 were chosen. Out of the amount of kids that were chosen that went here and were disadvantaged was way off base. So I would like to ask the principal of JECA, can I talk to him?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
If you want to, Mr. McFalls and...
The question I have is, who makes the choice of who's going and who ain't?
So when I started my administration at JECA 3 years ago, there was a application process in place that we went ahead and adopted, and that's what we followed. One of my priorities was to make sure that every middle school was equitably represented. I was also very sensitive to the perception that JECA was picking the best and the brightest. The benchmark at that time indicated that early college high schools were supposed to be a ramp for students that traditionally were underrepresented. And so we began a full effort to try to identify those students. The new benchmark is quite a bit more specific, but we started trying to identify those students. For instance, my first year, we had two additional meetings, one for Kirby and one for Metzger, because the applications from those two schools were underrepresented. And we felt like that was a population that JECA was, geared toward JECA. And so there was application process, there was criteria. And so as we received the applications, they were put into a spreadsheet. And then from that spreadsheet, we would invite a number of students to our interview process. So for instance, last year we had 300 applications. We invited 220 students to our interview process. The function of the interview process was to try to identify those students that had the academic aptitude to be successful in a rigorous environment, but also that fit into our benchmark. And I can say that 97% of our students fit the benchmark.
And if they don't fit the benchmark, they aren't even considered, right?
No, not necessarily. But once again, the applications go through a ranking system, and so they're scored. And those students then are identified and invited to the interview. At the interview, they all start over at 0 again. In the interview process, we have an orientation for the parents. They fill out an essay and a questionnaire. We interview each student. Each student also fills out a essay, but then we had a group activity where we could see what kind of leadership activity and skills, because a lot of students that should be in an early college high school may not necessarily have the academic record, but they have the ability, they have the work ethic and the leadership skills. And so we have been constantly evolving the process, trying to find how do you identify those hardworking B and C students? And so that has been one of our impetuses up until this point.
You didn't answer my question. Who makes the final decision?
The final decision is made by the administration at JECA, the counselor, the department chairs. It's based, we give the school, the students get a score, and then we put them into a spreadsheet. We then, basically out of that 130, we make sure that we have an equitable representation from each middle school. Kitty Hawk being the largest would have the most applications, so we don't want all the slots to go to them. So we make sure that it's spread out evenly, well, not evenly, but equitably among the middle schools. We also make sure that we're representing each of the populations. So we look at the demographics of the district, and we try to make sure that we represent that.
Well, who's the highest in the demographics of the district?
Hispanics.
Hispanic. How many Hispanics went in last year?
How many Hispanics went in?
Yeah.
57%.
87%?
57%.
50%. So that's above 50%, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then whites got how many?
Whites, our population last year of our 9th grade class that came in represented the district, and so last year's 9th grade class that came in, we had 57% were Hispanic. We had 1% American Indian, 3% Asian, 22% Black, 0% Hawaiian Pacific Islander, 17% Caucasian, and 1% one or more races.
Who is on your committee?
The committee, as it was, would be myself, my assistant principal, the 2 counselors, and the department chairs.
You don't have anybody from out of your area?
No, sir, but that's the way that when I came in, that was the process that was in place.
The original thing of this was to get the kids that would not be able to go to college in there. Is that happening?
Yes, sir.
It is?
Yes, sir.
Well, what I hear.
Well, I can't help what you hear, but I can tell you that the fact of the matter is we're working very hard to make sure that our students do match that demographic.
The requirements are that you be first-year college, right? One of the requirements?
Well, the requirements are that they be an underrepresented population. So we're looking at they can be at risk, they can be economically disadvantaged, first generation, or a minority. They can be all of those, or they can just be one of those.
Yeah, but one of the main things I remember in my mind, but my mind's not as good as it used to be, is that the fact is, we wanted first college students, kids that had never had a parent go to college, never had
Yes, sir.
a sister, brother, or anybody go to college. Is that happening?
Yes, sir. 47% of our freshman class were first generation.
How many percent had kids' parents go to college?
That would be 53%.
Really? How many from one family do you take?
How
I
many
mean-
do we take from one family?
Yeah.
It depends on if they qualify or not.
But when you take the first one, and the parent wasn't, none of his family went to college, doesn't that rule, doesn't that rule the second one out?
If the parent didn't go to college, does that rule the second one out? No, sir. We don't look at the names when we put them into the spreadsheet. We
Mhm.
weren't looking at names of students. We were looking at their criteria.
I'm sorry, but I forgot one of my books when I was coming this night. Is there going to be a change next year?
Yes, sir. The TEA has revised the benchmark, and the benchmark has become quite a bit more specific. And we also are working with a coach, Dr. Jennifer Stotts, and we are going to what's called a weighted lottery.
Why is a change being made?
I'm sorry?
Why
The
is the
state
change
made
being
the
made?
change.
Pardon me?
The state made the change.
The state, well, why did the state come and make the change? There had to be some reason for them to step in and make a change.
That I could not answer for the state. What I can tell you is that 97% of our students met the criteria.
97%?
97%, yes, sir.
I've got my stats at home, and I'm sorry, I forgot them. I had a whole bunch of stuff to bring, but I forgot it. But anyway, I'm going to ask the board to look in to make policy for that school. The state has policy, the board should have policy, because we're the ones that made this happen. I know just me and Mr. Matthias were the only two on the board at the time when this went up. Were you on it?
Not at the time.
Then I was the only one. There again, the mind ain't as good as it used to be. But the thing is, I didn't like the way the things went down here. And I wish I'd have brought my stuff, but what I'll do is I'll pick that up and come out to you personally, if it's okay with Dr. Montoya.
Yes.
And we'll sit down and go over those.
Yes, sir.
But I would like to make a recommendation to the board right now that we make a policy for JECA. So we have some control over what's happening. Right now, we have none, really.
We can add that to item 6G.
His school has everything.
We can add that to item 6G for future agenda item requests.
All righty. Renee, you got anything to say?
Miss Pichelle, thank you.
My question was going to be, if there, I realize, and I'm hearing Dr. Salinas whisper in my ear, that local policy does not supersede state. That I know. I just want to know, though, do we have something local? Do we have something besides the TEA benchmark that our district devised as criteria for the students that enroll or apply for JECA? Do we have something locally?
Ms. Pashaw, I am not aware of any policy at this time. When I assumed the leadership at JECA, the principal that had been there had been gone for some time. And so I had to rely on the institutional memory, and there was quite a few people that were still there. I also made visits to other ECHs, and my main priority was to make sure that we did recruit those students that did represent the benchmark as it was written at that time, and also equitably represent each of the middle schools. We also had a concerted effort to make sure that we had students that would academically be able to stand the rigors for 4 years, because there was a financial commitment. Having a graduating class of 50 students, I know the board would not tolerate, and so we wanted to make sure that those students had that academic success to be able to make it those 4 years. As it is right now, we tend to lose about 25 seniors from an original class of 125 to 130 to their final year. It's a big effort on our part to retain those students, and we do a lot of interventions to make sure that we try to hold on to them for all costs.
Thank you so much, Mr. McFalls.
You're most welcome.
Ms. Rodriguez.
I am just curious about the weighted lottery system. Could you tell us more about how things are weighted? And
Yes, ma'am.
if you know off the top of your head.
A weighted lottery is actually, in my mind, an oxymoron because it's no longer a true lottery. That is one of the things that we discuss with Dr. Stotts, our coach. Ms. Davidson and Dr. Cantu have been working with us. We have researched some other schools, pulled up what they are doing, and at this time, what it looks like that we're going to be doing is that we're going to equitably represent each of the middle schools based on the size of their 8th grade population. And then we're going to look at the demographics of the district. And so if the demographics of the district are 63% economically disadvantaged, then students will receive criteria based on that, and then we will place those students. So if, say, Kirby, and all of this is just, still needs to be codified and decided, but for instance, if Kirby has 20 slots and we need to reach 63% eco-dis, then we will look at the students, and those students that are eco-dis and the other criteria, they will actually be placed until those students are gone, and then we will go to the next level of criteria, and we'll keep working through the middle schools until we reach the 63%. At that time, once we have fulfilled meeting the district eco-dis, at-risk, African-American, and Hispanic, which are the four criteria that we'll be held accountable to, whatever is left, we will lotterize, and so whatever Kirby students or Kitty Hawk students are left, we would then pull those students out and place them into the school. That is just an idea of what a weighted lottery would look. We're going to discuss this, and then propose it to the JET committee to make sure that they're okay with that. And from there, I don't know if they'll bring it to the board or what the policy will be after that, but we definitely would want some policy because as Mr. LaFoy pointed out, a lot of this was based on verbal record, and we made the very best decisions for kids that we possibly could. Thank you. I'm very proud of my kids.
Mr. LaFoyle.
I want to make it perfectly clear. I'm not against JECA. I was on the board when it became JECA, and I pushed it as hard as I could to make sure it became a reality. And one of the big stickers was the money for the school, but we found it. Thing is, I want to see it succeed. I want to succeed the way we planned it to do, and not overlook the disadvantaged kids.
Absolutely.
They're the ones that need it, the worst of anybody. And some of the kids I've seen go through there, I don't know, it caused concern with me. And I wish I'd have brought that. I had it all set up and all put up. It's laying on my counter at the house. I grabbed everything else. So I'll come down and talk to you, seeing
Yes,
it's
sir.
okay with Dr. Montoya. But
Yes, sir.
I believe JECA is needed in this school district. And I hope it stays forever. I know I won't be here forever, but I mean, I hope it does.
My sentiments exactly, sir.
Mr. Macias.
Thank you, Mr. McFalls, for your
Yes, sir.
presentation. I may have not been on the board when the formation of the Early College Academy was done, but I know that in my 8 years, we've had a lot of conversations about early college. And I wanted to state that I have met with Mr. McFalls, as a matter of fact, when Dr. Wattis was your AP. And we had a very extensive conversation about the criteria that's used to select candidates for enrollment at the Early College Academy. And you didn't mention, but there is some foresight in looking at what middle schools that these kids are coming from and trying to ensure that we have the right representation from Kirby and Metzger. And I remember in our discussion that it was a challenge sometimes to find kids that were interested from Kirby and from Metzger. Now, fast forward 3 or 4 years, because it's been about that long since we had that discussion, are we still seeing, I won't say a lack of interest, but really not a strong interest from the Kirby Metzger area, Woodlake?
Yes, sir. One of our weakest areas is males, and particularly African-American males. And so that when I have visited with counselors, I've asked them to pointedly talk to students with disabilities, students that are ELL, and African-American boys to get them to think of JECA as a possibility. But we have done, we didn't do it this year, but we have in past done done extra parent nights in that end of the district just for Metzger and Kirby, because when I got there, when I looked at the applications, I realized that those schools had the fewest applications, and we needed them to have the most. And so we went to a concerted effort to try to generate that. And we have some data that shows that the number of applications actually increased several fold from both of those schools. And so we do continue to do that. We made our our student visits this year, and visited with the entire 8th grade of all the campuses. And just, we emphasize, and Ms. Bashal was there, is that we just emphasize we are not a magnet school for the best and the brightest. We want hardworking BC students, and that every student is a JECA student. And we want you to apply. If you're willing to work, then you're a JECA student.
And do I understand, too, from our conversation back then, that there was also a concerted effort to go into 5th grade to kind of
Yes, sir.
have that conversation as well? So, like I said, I remember taking away a lot of valuable. So has that been continuing?
Yes, sir. Ms. Juarez was the one that organized that. I'll give credit to her. It's called the Rising Raptors. Millers Point Elementary has already visited our campus this year. It's nice to see the elementary kids back again, and I believe Hopkins is scheduled to come, maybe Hartman. We have another school scheduled to come. The brochures for Rising Raptors have been given to Dr. Cantu to give to the elementary principals, so that is open to them, yes.
Well, and the reason why I think that's important, and if it's only those limited elementary schools, we don't want to expand to all of those elementary schools, because educating a parent as early as 5th grade, going into middle school, you'll get that student more engaged early on. And so obviously having an understanding that early college academy is a very viable reality, and also the dual credit. I don't know if dual credit is also discussed at that time, but some students may decide that they want to go the traditional high school route, but dual credit needs to be also inserted into the conversation so they realize there are options to still obtaining college readiness through those processes.
Yes, sir.
So obviously, it sounds like we have opportunity to still even enhance that initiative.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Seaton.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yes, it's good speaking with you when I come over. One of the things that concerned me, based on my understanding of the program, which is that it's supposed to be first-generation student to go to college. One. Now, when the students were coming here to speak with us, the board members, to save JECA, one of the things I noticed is that there were several students that came up to speak, and they were bragging on the fact that their siblings had already gone through and how much success they've had. We even had 2 sisters come up to speak. So if the program is supposed to be to have one go through, how are we ending up with 2 and 3 from the same family going through?
Yes, ma'am. First generation is the definition of that we use is that the parents have not been through college. So some of those students could and siblings could possibly qualify on that aspect.
See, that's not the way I was told that it was set up. So I'll have to talk to Mr. LaFoyle about that. Yeah, because it wasn't supposed to be like that.
Thank you. Mr. McFalls, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
JEC has been in existence how many years?
Since 2008.
So 10 years?
Yes, ma'am.
My recollection from 10 years ago was originally there was a grant that was written by the district, and I did ask Dr. Montoya to check to see, because I believe it was a grant, and you know, when you write a grant, you have to put criteria and how are we going to select students and what are we going to do once they're selected, and before the state grants your request. But I also understand that 10 years, we can't keep it the same way. Things have to change. I'm glad y'all are working with Dr. Stotts. I also am glad that you're looking at doing things equitably. But I also know that at Kirby, because I can speak for Kirby since I worked there, starting at 8th grade is too late, and bringing kids to you is not enough. You have to start at the elementaries, and you have to speak to parents, because parents need to understand that they need to start planning earlier. In 8th grade, it's very difficult to make that decision, and I know y'all do a great job when you come out and present, but we really need to start sooner, my recommendation, and really hit the parents. Because the parents are the ones that are gonna say, hey, where's that application? You're gonna be an 8th grader, start looking for that. And I'm glad that the 5th graders are coming up. I hope we do. I think Mr. Macias mentioned that should be why wouldn't every school come to visit JECA?
They are invited.
Well, I understand, but why wouldn't every school come?
Exactly.
An invitation is not the same as it's an expectation. We want every student to understand dual credit, and we want every child to understand, or at least to be exposed to it. Maybe they don't understand it at 5th grade. The other thing I want to point out is I do not ever want to be a part of a selection committee as a board member for what students are accepted into or not accepted into. I do not feel like that is my role as a board member. So I just want to state that. Thank you. If there's no further discussion, we'll move on to item 6E, update on study to achieve grade level and above. Mr. Macias.
Thank you, Dr. Salinas. We received an email that initiated our discussion on this. It was a few questions. Does everyone remember getting the email in regards to the, okay. So that was sort of a starting off point in terms of trying to identify what our processes were for achieving grade level and above. But I guess the opportunity to discuss it with my colleagues is here and now. So was there, I guess, any questions that came out of that? Or was, I just wanted to kind of get some thought first off from my colleagues about
I did not have any questions about that particular email, but that has been my question. That has been my purpose for running for the school board. I ran on that platform, that we have to get kids from K to at least 3rd, 5th, or 5th grade at or above grade level. It doesn't make sense to me that you have a child in 6th, 7th grade and they're reading at the 2nd and 3rd grade level. Something has to be done, and that is something that in our group session, group session that we just had, Ms. Kanoy and I are in the same group. That is one of the things that's my issue in that group, and that's what we're working on to try and see what we can do. And we have teachers, civilian parents, they're all in our group with that. So, yes, we're working on it.
Ms. Pichon?
Thank you, Dr. Salinas. I guess my question is for you, Mr. Macias. What is the expectation? What is your expectation for the percentage of kids to be on grade level? That's not realistic.
Well, and that's a good question. My expectation is that we have as close to 100% as possible. So the expectation, and I love the way that Dr. Salinas just said earlier about the expectation is all elementary schools should be. So the expectation is that we have all of our kiddos at grade level and above. And so our whole premise is to educate a child and get them the quality education that the community expects that we give them. So naturally, trying to pull back and figure out what are we doing, how are we executing, are there mechanisms to improve the process? That's sort of what the study was was asking. And so it's supposed to be comprehensive in respect to determining what we're doing as early as first grade, second grade, third grade, what our processes are. And I think based on the information we received, there is a lot of protocol already. There are things that are happening. So now we have to look back at how effective is it then? We have it on paper that we're doing it, but the results are what? And so based on what I'm hearing from community members, the results are not attaining the level that is required to be at grade level. When I spoke with TEA about this months ago, was sort of surprised that they allow the school districts to make that assessment. There is no standard state assessment other than STAR testing to determine where kids are. But if we know if there's a kid at the beginning of the school year that's having some difficulties, what are we doing with that kiddo? And then what are we doing when they get past the next grade? Because one of the other complaints I hear is we're just passing kids. And so sometimes there's merit to those responses, sometimes there's not, but our job is to find out and represent our community in that respect. So quite simply, it's not only helping those that are at risk, but what are we doing then with those kids that are doing well? It's the grade level and beyond that needs to be examined, because our kids, we should push them to do more. So what do our strategies look like for those students that may not have any at-risk indicators? What are we doing to help motivate them or give them the resources to do even better? So when I received the information from administration, it outlined that at-risk part, because we have all kinds of money set aside for that, but it didn't hit that segment of student that is doing okay. What can we now do to push them further? We need to have a centralized strategy to do that, because, I mean, it's contagious. You have students that start doing better, it impacts everyone. Then, of course, you have your students that are performing well. They're in AP classes. My dilemma with that is that some of our students in AP classes aren't passing the TSI measurements. So you would expect that AP, our most rigorous curriculum, would equate to 100% pass rate on those tests, which means, okay, let's examine our curriculum now. So the study is supposed to really ask all of those questions across the gamut, K through senior, and really reflect on what can we do. So ultimately what I expect is that we raise the bar, but we don't just raise the bar and say, hey, we want to see it done. We actually find what resources are going to be needed to provide and ensure that we get this job done. So I expect that we're going to see a need for more information, because the one cheater that we received in the email isn't a real comprehensive study. It's just the surface. I put this back on the agenda because I wanted to have some discussion on it, like a very good question you asked, so that we can start framing what those areas are that are significant. And then the other reason for putting it on the agenda is I was going to ask administration to come up with some solutions on what that process is. What I would like to do is hear from our RTIs, hear from our teachers, hear from our administrators, hear from our stakeholders on what can we do to help raise the bar. Is it a major grant? And so in all of that is the last piece, which is the social emotional part. You have to have a very strong strategy to address the emotional needs of our kids. So if it means adopting programs that do more social emotional work so that kid can focus on the classroom, we need to start doing that too collectively. So there's a lot here, but it needs to be truly examined. So additional follow-ups will be, what does that social emotional piece look like? We've had some discussions about intervention here, but it's very reactive from what I remember the discussion being. What proactive steps are we taking to address the emotional needs of our kids? And lastly, establishing methods in which to provide tutoring to our kids, not just in the morning at 7 when some kids don't want to get out there, not in the afternoon when kids are involved in other stuff. What can we do to structure it during the day? So those are sort of the random visions, I guess, if you will, of what this study will produce. And so I think it's definitely a worthy effort to put our time into. And I think it's also an opportunity for us really to say, this is the goal. It has always been the goal. But somewhere there's disconnects because we're seeing the results of that. And I guess the last thought on it is that this was also motivated by the fact that we're seeing more discipline problems in our school, which means kids are acting out, they're being bullied, there's bullying. So all of this means they're not focused in the classroom. So we have some work to do. And again, that's to answer your question.
So I guess then, what I'm seeing then, since you're telling me what the expectation is, that maybe one of those strategies, and you did hit on it, you said curriculum and instruction, and I'm thinking narrow it by looking at instruction. Look at instruction and see how the instruction can be tailored to achieve this goal of having whatever the percentage is of kids being on grade level. I would say look at instruction. Thank you, sir.
And if I could just rebuttal that, that is certainly what we could ask administration and what we will garner out of the information they provide. And so that's good. So we'll add that to the list of, hey, let's pinpoint that aspect of it too.
Ms. Rodriguez.
I absolutely agree that we want to get as many students as are as we're able to be performing on grade level. And I also acknowledge that that is very, very difficult to do, especially immediately. Like, speaking from the perspective of a classroom teacher, there were many times when I think I hit 100% on tax one time. And I was very proud of that. But that isn't even a measure of grade level readiness, right? Like, that's a low bar. However, I think what I'm struggling to understand in this proposal is, are you hoping to understand, like, comprehensively, like, what is everything out there that we are doing to address this problem, and then look at the efficacy of those? Or are you trying to make a policy change that, like, if students are not performing on grade level, then they will, not pass and, continue to be retained? I think that's what I'm struggling to understand. Both of them seem very difficult, but one seems, a policy change that would mandate that would, I think, have a lot of unintended consequences. The comprehensive study of, like, every program that we do, I think I agree with Ms. Pichal that maybe we could focus that in on one thing and over time look at different pieces, because it seems very, very time consuming to look at all of them at once. But that's my opinion.
Allow me to respond just so that we're on each one of them. The idea of a policy was not my expectation. Honestly, just having an assessment, which is my expectation, how can we know we're managing something if we can't measure it? So there has to be some measurability to our initiative that we're doing. And honestly, for the sake of efficiency and spending our tax dollars in the best way possible, we need to quantify the effort, which means I want to know what we're doing across the gamut. Where are we using title money that may not be effective? Where are we using M&O dollars that may not be, might be going through the process? And so what are the net results? I'm not going to say let's change the whole RTI structure, but if we were to look at it and say, hey, our current RTI structure isn't working the way it needs to, not all the students are being impacted, well, what would some other concepts be? So clearly this is not an overnight process by any means. This is one that I could see conceivably being part of a 3 to 5 year plan that would be done in phases, because curriculum or instruction alone, not going to move it. You also have to do that social emotional piece. You also have to have the instructional support after school or during school. So there are so many different areas that need to be addressed collectively. But this board can then mandate a strategy that is stating, okay, well, this 6 months, let's already focus on what we need to do here so that we can get to the end. And one thing that I'm not hearing, and I want to stress this, it's not only about getting them to grade level, it's about pushing them further. So it's not only grade level, but above. And so we want all of our kids to excel. The Producing Excellence tagline means let's produce excellence. So that means push for it, have our students expect it, which means there's infinite opportunities to help students beyond where they are right now. But we got to kind of find that out. So anyway, that's a response to your question, just to address each one.
I have several questions. I know when this first came up, I brought up, can we please look at data that we currently have? So our STAR now tells us if we're approaching meets, right, where are we at as far as grade level? Because it now does measure or attempt to measure. And so I'm curious, and I guess this is for Dr. Montoya and his cabinet, we have an interim assessment that's being offered by the state right now for 3 through 8 in EOC, and I'm curious, is every campus going to participate in that? Or is it by choice, or is it, if you don't want to, or is nobody going to do that? And I don't really need an answer now, but I'm bringing that up because that's just another opportunity where we can at least get more data, which is what we want. We want data. We also have, kids are passing and they're not on grade level. So we have universal screeners that we use. We have interventions. We have the RTI process. But then we also have something that we call grades. Grades determine whether you pass or not. Your ability level does not all the time. And so I think we have to look, I think as a district, we need to look at EIA local and legal and talk about mastery of content. And what does that mean? And so when you give an assessment and your kids fail, how does that impact your instruction? Because really, yes, the kid gets the grade, but really it should be about teaching. My teaching worked or didn't work because the kids learned or didn't learn. And I think we need to really look at both of those pieces, the grading aspect, the mastery of content, and then also, Mr. Macias, his passion is about social emotional, and because that does impact everything you do at school. And so I think, again, I'm going to go back to data, and I know when this first came up, I didn't support it. But the only reason I didn't support it was, I think, because Ms. Rodriguez brought it up. It's very vague for me, and I'm very concrete, sequential, left side math person. So I have left-brained math person, and so I need to know, like, what are we specifically doing? And so, but as I'm reading through what's going on and where we want to go, and listening to Mr. Macias and all of my fellow board members, I think we are headed in the right direction. I don't think it's going to be a 1 month, 1 year solution. I do think we have things in place. I just don't know if the grades and the ability level, I don't know if we're meshing those or if we're looking at how those work together. So that's my comments. Ms. Canoyer. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Eaton.
It's okay. Have we ever looked at, okay, a friend of mine had a child on the 2nd of September. And so that kid was well within the time frame to start school, right? Is that right? When does school start? Okay, so it must have been the 1st. Okay, because he could have started school. But they made a decision, a conscious decision, not to let him start because they didn't feel that he was mature enough. He would have been the youngest in his class, blah, 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 blah. And so by them making that decision, he excelled when he did start. Have we ever looked at some of those situations?
I'm going to go ahead and let you know that part of the reason that we don't do that anymore, we used to do that, but we don't do that because in the sports section, it's called redshirting. And a lot of people, especially boys, if they hold them back, it makes them, when they go into sports, it makes them excel even more, just like they would academically. Yes, sir.
So
yes,
we're more worried about sports than academics, or you just
no, that's
using
by
it as
state.
a metaphor?
No, that is no, that
oh,
is
that's a real thing.
That is a real thing. Yes, ma'am.
You're kidding. Wow. Okay, thank you. That answers one of my questions. The other thing is, We in Judson are blessed to have a blue ribbon school, Crestview Elementary. It's a Title I school and it's bilingual. What are they doing so right that we are not emulating some of that at our other schools? So, you know, we already in our house, we have an answer to some of this. We just need to start looking, asking questions, going to visit, those classrooms, those teachers, and see what they're doing. They're doing something right. They're a blue ribbon school, right?
Yes, and Ms. Eaton, we've actually asked some of the principals at the other schools to go visit, physically
The
visit.
principal? We need
And
teachers.
staff. No, both. To actually go and visit to see exactly what are they doing. And we've also asked the principal of that school maybe to put some best practice ideas down, because not only visit, but maybe put something together that could be shared specific, saying, look, this is what we did over time. So hitting it from two angles. One is a visual, let's go see what the heck they did, but also something in writing that maybe people could use as a resource. So we're kind of developing that, because you're right, it's a national model. It is good. They did a
Yeah.
good job.
Yeah.
No, but
You
you're
know,
correct.
It kind of, it's like what Mr. Macias is saying, you know, I made a decision this year to lift weights, to get some muscle. And I was in there telling the guy what I could not do. And he showed me a video of a 91-year-old female bodybuilder, and I almost pushed a weight through a window. You know, you got to get that little extra in order for them to understand that it's not a matter of just doing enough. You have to do more, because in doing more, it prepares you for the next grade, for the next level, for the next effort, the next problem. So we have some of the answer, maybe not all of it, in our very own backyard. We just have to check it out and see what they're doing. And that's the elementary level. So Metzger, Hartman, you know, Crestview, not Crestview, but
Yes.
the two or three that we're really concerned about.
Yes.
Okay, and then I'm gonna say this. When I was going through Wayland Baptist Master's Program for my education degree, I chose Judson School District to come to do my student observations. And I have to tell this on Metzger. I'm sorry, I have to tell this, and I know that she's gone, so this is why I don't have a problem telling it, the teacher. I was in a classroom as an observationist, sitting in the back, student observer, and we have to sit there for the whole class period. There was a teacher that took 4 little black students, males, and she put them at one table. And, you know, I looked at that and I was like, you know, maybe they're friends. And, you know, if it was my class, I wouldn't do that, because maybe they're friends. So how much are they gonna learn if they're gonna sit here and play with their friend? But I'm the student observer, so, you know, I can't say anything. So I sat there and I'm watching this. She started the class. She never addressed them. They started playing with each other, kicking each other under the table, but she stopped long enough to yell at them. One of them asked for a pencil, and instead of her just giving the kid the pencil, she went off on him about why you don't have a pencil. She wasted a lot of time, okay? Anyway, I sat there for this class. Well, I didn't sit through the whole class period, because at the time, Ms. Ross was the principal over there. I was so angry, I got up and walked out the room, and I went and found Ms. Ross and just went berserk. And then I left the school. Okay? Because I'm trying to be able to teach children, and this is the example, you know? But I just wanted to share that with you, and I know the teacher is gone. So I'm thanking God for that. But we have to find a way to reach them all. It shouldn't matter what color the skin is. We have to reach them all. That's all I got.
Ms. Kenoyer.
Thank you. I don't know what I did there. Wake everybody up. I want to submit 2 things in response to what you've been talking about, Mr. Macias. One is, and of course I speak for elementary because that's what I know best, but in the elementary schools, teachers are required to do differentiation for students. You not only differentiate down for the students who struggle, but you differentiate up for the students who achieve those goals. Is that hard to do? Absolutely. Teachers get a 45-minute planning time every day on the days they get it, when they don't have a parent conference, when they don't have to deal with a situation, when they don't have a meeting, when they don't have to meet to go over RTI data, when they don't, okay, you hear what I'm saying. You have to look at each student individually to differentiate for them. So that involves writing a specific plan for each student. It takes time. So expecting our teachers to do that much more work makes it a very difficult proposition for them. So if we want them to do that, we're going to have to provide resources, time, money for those teachers to do what's necessary there. And then the other thing I want to address is what research says about students of poverty. And our district has changed since the time I joined the district back in 19 blah, blah, blah. At that time, our poverty rate was fairly low, and we are probably, opposite from what it was when I first started in the district. What research says about students of poverty is that they come with a deficit of words, they come with a deficit of knowledge, a deficit of experience. That is not an excuse, and I don't want it to be that. But if we are going to truly reach these students and make sure they're on grade level, we're going to have to focus more attention at the schools that have a majority population of students of poverty. So I want to use my phrase that I used for my students all the time, which is fair is not always equal. You go to the doctor, one of you has a broken leg, the other one has a headache, the doctor gives you both an aspirin. That's equal, but that's not fair. So we need to give to those schools what they're required to do. Yes, we get some money through Title I. Is it enough? I don't think so. None of our schools get enough money. But we are going to have to actively look at partnerships, look at grants, look at every source of funding we can in order to provide the materials, the people, the resources, the mentors, all those kinds of things that need to come. And until we do that, we're not going to have kids reaching grade level.
Thank you for that reminder, Ms. Canoyer, because that's exactly what we learned, didn't we? When we went to the training that's exactly what we learned. And that those districts that were very low socioeconomic, they did partnerships in that community, and the entire community bought in. And that's why those kids became more successful, and they went from the bottom of the barrel up here. You're very right. Thanks for reminding me.
Mr. Macias.
Great input. Great input. I'm not speechless. I just don't know where to start. But great input, and obviously the issue that Dr. Salinas had mentioned in terms of equity, and that you've mentioned as well, Ms. Canoyer, is important. And we do need to kind of look at that to ensure that we've offered equity in terms of getting to a baseline. But in order to partner with a nonprofit and to build those partnerships, my end vision would be that we're asking for grant money. I know it's going to take money if we're going to support initiatives in the classroom. If the determination is if we added an instructional aid to every classroom in a title campus to help teachers differentiate, then by God darn it, we're going to get an instructional aid in every classroom to make that happen. But that's where we need to look at our title expenditures, and I keep attacking that darn backpack program, almost $500,000. You know how many instructional aids we can get for $500,000? And we would focus it. So there are inefficiencies already that I know are in there in terms of our expenditures of title monies. And I take that back. That's too harsh inefficiencies. There are some better things that we can do with our title money because we do spend it, and there is definitely a good outcome with what we expect. But right now, we need to have the study to help determine, so that way we can reach out to the right nonprofit. That way we can write the right grant. That way we know where we want to put our focus. And and essentially help the entire district and our students and our communities. I will say that in elementary specifically, I would like more effort with parental engagement. And so that piece will be part of getting us to grade level and above, because we all know we're not on an island. We need parents engaged. And so I'm excited about this program that we've initiated in 3 of our campuses, I believe, that's going to educate those first graders about learning what it takes to have a kid on a college and career readiness track and engage them early in the process. The reason I like it is because it's also going to identify those parents that don't even show up, even though we feed them, we invite them, because once you've identified that kid that's not getting parent support at home, well, guess what? We have a strategy now that does the intervention to give that kid that support. That makes sense. That's what I would want to see and what I hope that we will be able to do at every elementary campus in this district. Will that take money? Well, yeah, but we certainly have a means in which to ask for it. And if we can intelligently ask our business partners, like an HB or a Valero, that, hey, you fund this program, we can do A, B, or C, I think they'll be open to doing it. So that's sort of my vision. I'm hoping we all get there. I think we're all on the same page, and this item will still come up until I believe we have a comprehensive enough of a study to do that. So, thank you.
Ms. Pichelle.
Don't kill me. Lastly, Dr. Montoya, I don't get a chance to visit. I have the chance, I just don't, not very often, elementary schools. But I must say, I want to challenge. I see Mr. Galloway sitting out there. They have such a fantastic program over there at Candlewood. And I would challenge Mr. Galloway to.
What's the program?
To some way or another present what you do over there that makes you guys so successful to other principals. I don't know how you would do it, but you guys got a good thing going on over there, and I just think it should be showcased, and maybe that will help some of these things that Mr. Macias is referring to.
Dr. Montoya.
I know that we've talked about many good areas here. I'm glad to hear that we're not just talking about academics, because a well-rounded student is not just academics, and that's important. Nobody can deny that. But I'm also hearing, and I like that we need to do the psychological, the social, and maybe the counseling department. What can we do to kind of help that world with our students and meet some of their needs and concerns? And I think that's very, very important. The other one, and this supports what Mr. Macias said, without involving the guardians, the parents, beyond the teachers, we're not going to go far. So we need to open that door more effectively in plans and how we do that. So I'm glad to hear that those are on the table. And like anything else, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, all of us working together as a team. But I think we can develop a plan, a direction, and kind of a timeline to see what we can do. So this has been very good.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 6F, update on board advisory committees. Does anyone have any comments or discussion that they'd like to share? Comments that they'd like to share? Ms. Kenoyer.
We had the first meeting, well, actually second meeting, because the first meeting was the, hey, everybody, we're the committee, of the curriculum committee for the board advisory committee on Monday. And Ms. Eaton and I were both there. It was led very capably by Ms. Davis, who turned it over then to our 2 co-chairs who are handling it. What we did is we took sticky dots and put them on topics that had come from a Google sheet where all the committee members had submitted input on areas that they wanted to study. And then we kind of broke it into elementary and secondary, because some of the topics applied to one group, some applied to the other group, and some applied to both. And so we've kind of delineated, at least in the group that I followed, the secondary group, what we were going to focus on for the next meetings. Some of the participants took tasks for homework to investigate, gather information, and bring back. And I think it's going to be very productive. I'm very excited about it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, my group was we're focusing on the elementary portion, and we basically did the same thing as far as the dot sheets and formulating the information. And I mean, I was so excited when I left out of there. The next day, I found a school that teaches Spanish from 18 months up. And I came in, I told Ms. Canoia, and she was like, yeah, but that was the wrong piece of information. But you know what? Tomorrow morning, I'm going to call her back and say, hey, this is actually what we're looking for, because what we came up with makes so much sense. And it also helped me to understand that our teachers need help. You guys need help. We owe you materials. We owe you to not have to spend so much time having to redevelop information in order to teach in our dual language programs. It's not right for several reasons. One school may have two teachers fully capable of coming up with something and it works, whereas the same third and fourth grade class at another school may be struggling simply because that teacher just couldn't come up with the correct way to present the information. So we need to kind of get it standardized and get the teachers talking, but we owe you the materials that you need to work with. You shouldn't be having to develop stuff and make up stuff so that it's then we lose the standardization of what you're trying to accomplish. So we owe that to you, and with what we're doing right now, you guys are gonna be surprised. You're gonna be surprised.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to item 6G. Update on board trainings, conferences, events, and consider future agenda item requests by board members. Mr. LaFoille? Okay, Ms. Canoyer?
Yes, I'd like to have an agenda item discussing plans for redistricting our elementaries with our 2 new elementaries open. I'd like to see if we're going to be adjusting boundaries for more schools so that we don't have any that are below a certain % capacity. How can we effectively move those students around?
Okay. Mr. Macias?
I would like to request a preliminary budget for next year. I know it's really soon, but I know that we also made a pledge to work on a budget from July 1, once we pass the last one. So I'd like to take a look right now where we are, and then actually start planning those finance meetings that we'll need to hold in March, I suspect, but whenever our board president deems necessary, but get an idea of when we want to put them out there. Earlier they are on our calendar, the better we'll be able to move forward.
Thank you. Ms. Eaton?
This is not, it doesn't have to be an agenda item quite yet, but Dr. Montoya, I'm interested to see how, I see that we get a list of instructional materials in this book, who's ordered it, what it costs, where they're getting it from. I want to try and get an idea of are the teachers restricted on how much they can spend, what type of budget that they're working with. Okay. It doesn't have to be an agenda item. I
Just the board information that we can
Please.
share. So
And
we
then
can-
I'll be able to come up
can
with
work
a
something,
board question for the board.
Ms. Rodriguez?
I think mine is a request for information. So something I've been thinking about is in line with Mr. Macias's discussion of students on grade level and the point that Ms. Canoyer brought up of many students enter with a vocabulary, like behind vocabulary. I'm really interested in our early childhood programs. I know that, not every child in Judson has access to free pre-K.
Right.
And so I was wondering, I think I'd like to see a report with which schools, how many seats are there at each elementary school for pre-K? And are we operating at capacity with pre-K? Thank you.
Ms. Pichelle?
Yes, Dr. Montoya, I would like to see some type of a local policy that I guess the curriculum department could come up with that would be more in tune to what we were talking about, this criteria for JECA.
Okay.
something that is local, that we would be following, and
With the, per the discussion.
per the
kind of,
discussion that we
yeah,
had
we
tonight.
We can
So
develop
that it
something.
would be another agenda. And I'm thinking, I don't know when the applications go out to those eighth graders. I don't know what month they go out, but is it possible that, let's see, policies have to be first and second reading, don't they?
Yes.
So this would not be something that would have enough time
Could-
to use for the next rotation, would it?
We could
Okay.
call it guidance, guidelines, and then convert it, yeah, guideline, administrative procedures, and then come later with the actual policy.
Okay,
So, and it would connect, so we could probably do that.
so some guidelines.
Yes,
And I'm requesting that for March.
okay, for March, we can
Yes,
do that. Okay.
Ms. Eaton, did you have something else?
Okay, I don't know if this needs to be done before that, but I would like to see the original setup for the program. Because how are we gonna do any guidelines on anything when we are not privy, the new board members, to the original setup? My concerns were based off of what I heard was supposed to happen.
Okay.
Okay.
We can share with the board some history, some actual data, I mean, documents, I should say, that kind of leads into some of this. So I think, Dr. Cantu, you've been looking at some of that, so we can do that. No, it's on the, yeah, it's on the TEA grant page that we can look at. Yeah, we can follow up. Yeah, we can look at it, but we can get you information from that perspective. So, yeah, Ms. Eaton, we can share that, so. Yes, okay.
It's my turn. I'd like to have two agenda items, please. That's okay. I'd like to have two agenda items. One of them is going to be just an information item on where we are per last year's STAR scores with regards to approaching and meets grade level. I'm sure you already have that. The other thing I'd like, this is an old notebook, but before we had veterans open, we had actually gotten endorsements and pathways, and I want to say it included CTE.
The list.
And I'd like to know a current one, please, for discussion. I understand that we might be getting rid of some programs, but nothing has come to the board. And so I'd like to hear more about that, if that is true or not, and why, and also numbers for the CTE programs from middle school through high school.
Okay, we can do that. Well, we can do it in a Friday newsletter ahead of time. Is that okay?
Yes, but
We
I
do
would like
that.
it for an agenda item for discussion.
Okay.
You can
So we
certainly
can,
send out the information
ahead
anytime
of
you'd like,
time
but I
and
do want an
stuff.
agenda item.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, oh, and I am going to TASA Midwinter next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so I'll be there. Okay, we will now adjourn into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. Texas Government Code Section 551.074, discussing personnel. Texas Government Code Section 551.072, discussing purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Texas Government Code 551.071 and 551.0821, deliberation and consultation with school attorney regarding pending litigation and possible settlement of student versus Judson Independent School District before a special education hearing officer for the state of Texas, docket number 225-SE-0617. D, pursuant to Section 551.071 of the Texas Government Code, attorney consultation related to superintendent's mid-year evaluation. Section 551.074 of the Texas Government Code, consider and discuss the superintendent's mid-year evaluation. And the time is now 9:45.